The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. A new day here in the eastern part of Canada is now September the 13th, and a new day has begun. First of all, in the first hour of tonight's show, I did a little tirade, I would imagine some people are calling it, about my beliefs and what I'm looking for in order to have the belief of others validated. Hour number two, my good friend Gwilda Wiyaka was with us. We were discussing her two radio shows, very popular shows, I might add, Mission Evolution and her vignette, that I call it, Stairway to Heaven. Both are available on XZBN and XZTV. Our guest this hour is a young lady I've had the pleasure of having on the show before. Her name is Kate KUNKLE. And first of all, let's get Kate on here. Craig, and welcome her. Hey, Kate, how are you?
Hi, I love you. You don't call me young. Yay.
Hey, well, you are young. You know, they say I look at the age of a person based on the age of their heart. And to me, you're a very young person. So how are you, dear?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. I'm so happy to see you.
Nice seeing you too, Kate. You used to be in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was there for a few years after I came back from LA and Las Vegas. Yeah. So I was in Toronto. Now I'm in Ecuador.
What's it like in Ecuador? I've never been there.
Oh, you must come and visit, Rob. It's beautiful. It's diverse. Yeah. We have the mountains. Really? We have the Amazon. I'm on the coast. We have the rainforest. Oh. It's a very poor country, so there are a lot of problems because of that. You know, there are issues. But I love it. I just love it here.
Well, you know what? We've been stuck at home for 3 years because of COVID. Well, not only because of COVID, I was stupid enough to fall off the roof and kind of whacked up myself in the hospital, yeah. My wife, God bless her, I love her with all my heart. To me, she's not only my wife, but she's my best friend. So whenever I can do something for her, I always go out and try to do my best. So we moved from Hamilton, where we were for many years, and I loved our home in Hamilton. We had a couple of birch clusters that I would just put Christmas tree lights, the floodlights underneath, and you know we had shrubs and everything. I just put the Christmas tree lights on that, and everything was fine. But when we moved to Crystal Beach and we bought our home there, Laura said, "I've always wanted Christmas tree lights on the roof." Well, I said, "Okay, honey." Together we worked on a Saturday, and we left about 6 to 8 feet left to do. And I figured, well, I'm going to surprise her. I'm going to go up, finish the Christmas tree lights. I'm going to make her a beautiful breakfast, and then we're going to go out. Well, I got up on the ladder, and I got on the roof, and 2 things happened that day. 3 things, actually. Number 1, Newton was right about gravity. And number 2, it's not the fall that hurts, it's a sudden stop.
Yeah.
And number 3, I fell off the damn roof. And no, I did not get the lights finished. So that added on to COVID. And then with COVID, my mom passed away. We couldn't get to Quebec to see her for the funeral. Everything has been a schmozzle. So this past Saturday, my wife and my sister-in-law, Pam, drove to Kingston, Ontario to be with their other sister. For the first time in 3 years, they had a sister's weekend.
Nice.
So she's coming home tomorrow. Don't tell her how much I missed her. I've told her that, you know, I'm okay. I'm a big boy. Yeah, me and the 3 dogs. You know, the 3 dogs are sitting at the door waiting for her to come home any second. So anyway, how is COVID for you down there?
Oh, Rob, it was really bad because they had a curfew during the first several, well, actually almost 2 months. It was
Mm-hmm.
insane. They stopped everybody from, the buses didn't run, cabs were only allowed certain hours, certain days, cars could only travel on certain days. And they stopped everything at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, so 2
Wow.
p.m. until 5 a.m. So remember, we're in a very poor country and people are
Yes. Yeah.
working, they're living hand to mouth. So
Right.
all the people who sell, coconut water on the corner, all the people who sell newspapers, all the people who live literally on $5 to $10 a day had
Oh
no
Lord.
money, Rob, none. And there is no safety net here. There's nothing like in Canada, I can tell you, not even close. So
Mm.
many of us expats, we spent many, many months, many weeks raising money, buying food, and delivering it out to the barrios because people were starving, Rob. It was really, really bad. And it was so ridiculous because on top of all that, they were
Mm-hmm.
spraying, when they finally allowed the buses and the cars to go out normally again, they were
Right.
spraying cars with disinfectant in the city I'm in. Like,
Oh my God.
honestly, it was just insane. I felt so bad for these people, and it's going to take a long time to recover. It's nowhere near.
It
If it,
sure is.
yeah.
Anyway, God bless you for the great work that you did in helping out those people.
Well, we had to. You
Yeah.
can't just watch people starve and little kids. Oh my goodness.
Well, you know what? You know what? I think that this is a humanitarian choice that people like you with heart in the right place make. Because I'm sure there were many people looking who didn't give a damn. But thank you for doing that.
Well, I had to, but thank you.
So tell me about Brain Health Matters.
I'm so grateful to be able to talk to you about this because it's such a passion for me. Brain Health Matters
Mm-hmm.
came about because my mom was diagnosed with dementia
Right.
almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And because of her diagnosis and my own battle with rheumatoid arthritis, I had to learn how to get healthy naturally for me. And I was hoping that I could make a difference in her, the progress of her disease. Unfortunately, it was pretty far advanced. Now that I know as much as I do, did you know that it takes 30 years for dementia to show up? From the
No, I
time
didn't.
your body develops the space,
Mm-hmm.
the space for developing this, and it takes about 30 years to manifest. So we've got all things that can happen. You can have amalgam fillings, you can have toxic exposure, you can eat like crap, you can have heart issues, all of those things, but they accumulate, and over 20 to 30 years, it's not until it gets that far that you get symptoms. So by then, it's really hard to turn it around. It can be done. We have done it. Dr. Bredesen, I study with Dr. Bredesen, he's done it. Dr. Sanderson, all these people are helping reverse dementia. It can be done. Don't let the medical profession tell you that it can't, because it
Mm-hmm.
can. But you have to catch it, and it works. You have to work really hard at it. So when mom was diagnosed, I didn't know all this, of course. I had to learn this. But now that I know, I'm on a mission. Nobody should have to suffer with this, even if you have the genetic risk factor, which is the APOE4 allele. You shouldn't have to do this because most of it is lifestyle driven.
Is there any way to detect it earlier?
Yeah, they're getting some blood tests. They're tweaking some of the blood tests. They're getting
Mm-hmm.
there. You can also, like I studied with Dr. Amen, and we do SPECT scans, which is a special kind of brain scan. And you can actually see parts of the brain where you're not getting enough oxygen and or blood flow. And that can be indicative of many things. It can manifest in mental health issues. But we know by looking, well, I haven't looked at all these, but he's looked at 200,000 scans, and he can see, and his doctors can see where the problems are when you are beginning to have cognitive decline. So when you can see it that soon, you can get to work right away to turn it around. So this brain scans, when you lose your sense of smell, when you start losing your sense of smell, that's a risk factor.
Really?
And, like they say, oh, senior moments are not okay. They're really not okay. Because if you're having them all the time, the occasional lapse is fine. But if you're having them every day, it's not okay. That's a warning sign.
What else do you cover in Brain Matters Health? I'm sorry, Brain
That's
Health
okay,
Matters.
Brain Health Matters.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. We talk about music because did you know that when you're a musician, your brain is actually bigger than people who are not musicians?
You told me that the last time we were talking.
So we have that. We have a stronger corpus callosum. So all of those things work together to help us keep our brain healthier. So music is a big part of it. Mindfulness and meditation. Meditation is hugely beneficial for a bigger brain, a better brain, because I think there's two reasons for that. Firstly, the actual act of meditation is a big part of that, but then also because it gets you into the parasympathetic, which is the rest and relax and heal mode, so your body can do what it needs to do. And if you're always in the sympathetic state, which is the fight or flight, it's really hard to be healthy anyway, but especially your brain.
All right, stand by. Kate, you and I have to take our first break. Exo Nation, my guest this hour is Kate KUNKLE. Learn more about Kate, visit her website at brainhealthmatters.today. And Kate and I will be back after this short break. Whatever you do, don't go away. Do you enjoy paranormal, sci-fi romance, yet find yourself tired of the same old themes and storylines? Then you won't want to miss Kahira O'Donnell's latest exciting release, To Taste You Again. Alien Lord Kane McKean knew the moment that his destined mate was born. He watched from afar, waiting for her to grow from child to woman. However, before she was old enough, she was stolen from her home world by flesh pirates. Kane searched 10 long years to find her held in a suspension chamber, a 10-year-old girl in a woman's body. He rescued her and swore to give her time to grow up, but with his very life depending upon winning her as a mate, has he waited too long? Get your copy today. To Taste You Again by Kahira O'Donnell is now available on Amazon or KahiraO'Donnell.com. Kate KUNKLE is my guest this hour, Exonation, www.brainhealthmatters.today. Is there any part of the world where the mental health is more at risk than other parts of the world?
Yeah, wow, that's a really big question. Mental health issues are so big right now, really around the world. I mean, I'm here in a third world country, and we have a lot of issues thanks to COVID in part. I don't think there's any place in the world, unless they have been completely isolated from the fear of the last 2.5 years. I honestly don't believe so, Rob. I have clients in South Africa and in Australia. I have students in Europe and Russia, and I'm not seeing anywhere where mental health is not being threatened. But that's another thing that we have a lot of control over. We don't think we do because things seem so overwhelming, but we do have things that we can do on our own to help.
Is there the drug problem in Ecuador that there is up here in North America?
It's really interesting right now, thanks to the economy going down the toilet. We have a drug war going on. Ecuadorians are not particularly interested in illicit drugs. I think part of it's because they don't have the money. But secondly, it just doesn't seem, there's alcoholism is an issue, but we're between Colombia and Peru, and there is a battle between gangs, between drug lords, and we are caught in the middle. There's a city 2 hours from me called Guayaquil, and it is the battleground for these drug wars, and there has been a lot of violence because of that. It happens wherever there are drugs, that illicit drugs, and so we've got an issue with that. But oddly enough, I don't see, and I've been here now, living here for 5 years, and been coming down here for 8 years, and I had never really thought of this as a country where drugs were a problem, like in the US or Canada. I lived in the US for many years, and it was a big problem there, certainly, and in Canada. But here, I don't see it the same. Alcoholism, and we also have domestic violence. Those are issues here. Yeah. But it's the drug sales. It's this, because it's a port. Guayaquil is a port. And so we've got that going on here.
I would imagine there's a lot of homelessness down there.
Interestingly, homeless is not as big an issue as you would think. Poverty is different, but remember, here we don't have there's no such thing. Well, they do have building codes and so forth, but there are a lot of caña houses, which is cane, bamboo, strips of bamboo. It's called caña, and they have a lot of these literally shacks. It's caña on a dirt floor and whatever is inside. That is very, very common, and many people just sort of squat. And there was a time when we had a socialist president who gave away a lot of land, and so these people were able to put houses on them legally. And so, but homelessness is not as big. There is a little bit, but mostly it's connected with mental health issues, like in Canada and the US. It happens a lot there too, right? But mostly here, it's just sheer poverty.
So how did you go from playing the harp to doing the work you're doing now?
It's kind of a natural extension, because when I was playing the harp, I was also doing healing work with the harp. The harp is known as a healing instrument. And so I very quickly learned that this instrument that I had was going to be something that I could use to help people, not just entertain, but to help people. So it kind of, when I started studying about brain health, and I realized what a big impact that music has on the brain, it was the perfect segue to take the healing harp work into and bring it into the brain health work.
We've talked about musicians with bigger brains, and that explains. I love music. I play the guitar and several other instruments. But you once told me that humming can also be very effective. Can you tell our audience about that?
Sure. Humming is so powerful. Firstly, the act itself, exactly, and you can do it anywhere. The act itself is very calming. And there are many reasons for that. What I believe is probably the main reason is that it stimulates what's called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes along behind our vocal cords, and it goes from the brain to all the other organs. And it sends messages back and forth. If we stimulate the vagus nerve, we help set the whole body into a parasympathetic, rest and relax state. So that helps right there, the act of making that vibration to stimulate the vagus nerve. So that's one thing. The second thing is humming is like it's almost subconscious for many people. My Oma, my father's mother, she hummed all the time, literally all the time. I never knew her not to be humming. And she had a terrible life, Rob. It was awful. World War II, and her husband was in a prisoner of war camp. And she's raising 4 little boys in the middle of this, especially post World War II. That was actually worse for them. So she got a bonk on the head from a hay wagon at the time. The Russians were in her part of Germany, and they made people work wherever they told them to work. And she was working, harvesting hay. And there was a big log on top of the hay to hold it in place.
Yeah.
Well, it fell off and bonked her on the head.
Ooh.
She would have died if one of the other workers hadn't gone to get one of the boys and bring them to save her, to get her to home. She was unconscious for 2 weeks. So that means she had a really serious traumatic brain injury. Malnutrition, all the other things that should make someone have dementia like really young. She was perfectly lucid until 94.
Wow.
So I truly believe that her love of music, her humming, had to have had something to do with that, because all the odds were against her. You know, she should have had dementia at 70, but she didn't.
What about drumming? You know,
Drumming.
in a lot of the First Nations, they have the circles and they drum. What is the significance of this? I mean, besides for their own cultural festivities and celebrations, but is there more to drumming than that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been used as in shamanic ceremonies for healing, right? So think of what's the first sound we hear as fetuses. We hear our mom's heartbeat.
Yeah.
It's a beat. That is what we are. We resonate with the earth, which is at 7.83 hertz, about. That's the Schumann resonating frequency. We are vibrating beings. Everything is vibrating all the time, right? I mean, physics, and we know that. But we humans are vibrating at a specific rate in tune with the earth, but we resonate with a beat. And it's so natural. If you leave a child alone and there's something going, chances are they're going to try and beat out, or they're going to stamp their little feet or something to keep beat with whatever it is. So it's very much a part of us, and it also can set up a resonance. So if we're not particularly healthy at one point, if we set ourselves up into a drumming or anything really where there's a beat, it can even be a bass guitar, boom, 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 that kind of thing. You're setting up that beat, and it can set you into that healing resonance, and you'll find it yourself. It's a very natural thing. It just comes to you.
And I would imagine this has something to do why people love to dance.
And dancing is so good for you on so many levels. Firstly, it's exercise, so that's good. Then you've got the beat, but you also have the brain kicking in, because especially if you're dancing like salsa or tango or ballroom dancing or even disco, where you're actually following a pattern, where you have to follow with your partner, or they're more complicated steps, ballerinas, tap dancers. That is not only the music and the beat, that's also making different parts of your brain work together. So you've got many senses going on. You've got hearing, you've got sense, the sense of touch. You've got coordination. It's really amazing. Dancing is so good for you.
So basically, you're choreographing your way to health.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. I love that.
Yeah. You can use it.
Thank you. I will.
So how long have you been doing your show? You used to do a TV show. Now you're doing a podcast. Tell us about that.
Brain Health Matters every week. Well, it was every week. Now I'm going to every 2 weeks because I'm writing another book, so I can't do the podcast so much. But I invite people on who are experts in their field. I've had many musicians and therapists on. I have doctors, Dr. Sanderson, Dr. Bredesen is coming on. I'm so excited. He's actually the gentleman who has created what's called the RECODE program. He has actually had clinical trials reversing Alzheimer's. Proof that it can be done. Proof. So I'm so excited to have him on. So I have experts in many fields: toxicity, mercury, the food toxins, of course. There's so much in the food. So we talk about that, and then how we can counteract that to improve our overall health, which of course is going to help the brain.
You know, when you look at what kids are shoving down their throats these days, it's horrific. You know, like, you've got all these fast food restaurants and Canada. There's Tim Hortons on every corner. There's a McDonald's. You've got Wendy's. Anything to make their life faster, not better, but faster. How do we deal with this as adults? And why isn't the government or the authorities clamping down and saying, hey, listen, yeah, sure, we're making a pot full of money off your taxes, your revenue, and so on, but you're killing our people?
Well, I think we know that mostly the government doesn't really give a hoot about that. They are very concerned about putting themselves back in power. And how do they do that? They have people who pay them to do, they have contributors who make lots of money on our illness.
Yeah.
The big food and big pharma industry are very intimately entwined. And when we look at the fast food industry, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is such we call it the standard American diet or SAD diet, and it really is, because it makes you sad, it makes you ill, it makes you demented, because of firstly, it's not real food, so your body doesn't know what to do with this stuff. It's also been, they have scientists who spend their lives creating tastes and additives that make you crave these foods that are so bad for you.
Aspartame. There you go.
Yeah, aspartame. It's a neurotoxin.
Yep.
It's going to destroy your brain quicker than you can shake a stick. Very bad.
And yet it's all over the place.
Yeah, and I have noticed, though, in the last number of years, because when I did my TV show, we talked a lot about aspartame when I had Out There TV. I've noticed that people are a little bit more aware of the dangers of aspartame. However, they still use sucralose, which is it's just as bad. But people are cluing in a little bit more to aspartame. Unfortunately, they're changing the names. Like they changed, like for sugar, even sugar though, Rob, they add it to so many things. Try and buy a loaf of bread in Canada that doesn't have sugar in it.
You can't find one.
Nope.
In fact, the bread, when you go to the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread and you smell it, you can smell the chemicals in it.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
My God, and people are ingesting this crap.
Yeah. And a lot of it, glyphosate in North America, wheat is sprayed with glyphosate just before it's harvested so that it dries up, right? So it's been sprayed all along, but then that is going right in to the harvested crop. That doesn't go away when it's processed. It's right there with it. So yeah, besides the other chemicals, you've also got a toxin.
Kate, you and I have to take a break. Please stand by. Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, Kate KUNKLE, visit her website. And it is, just give me a second here, www.brainhealthmatters.today. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com.
simultv.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Kate KUNKLE is our special guest, and once again, her website is brainhealthmatters.today. Years ago, Kate, people were talking about aspartame left, right, and center. People were talking about Morgellons disease. And it seems that as time goes by, people forget.
Yeah.
You know,
people forget because there's so much other crap going on in the world, Rob. They can't, I mean, think about it. If you had to keep all this in your mind at all the time, you'd go out of your mind. It's too much. I truly believe that there's just so much thrown at us so that people are befuddled. They don't even know what to do anymore.
Well, and I think the internet has a lot to do with that, with the constant availability of data, real and fake, bombarding us 7/24, 365. You know, God bless the children of today. I don't know how they're going to succeed in the future if there's ever a power failure or a solar flare that just decimates the electrical grid, because my God, what are they going to do without their little, their iPhones, their iPads? You go to a restaurant and you see a family of 4 or 5 people. They don't talk anymore.
Yeah,
they're too busy with the iPad, and mom and dad are just as guilty. So where do you see all this like with the important message that you have been getting out there for all these years, Kate, and bless you for that. How do we keep that importance in front of them when there's so much other information that is distracting them from what they need to know?
Oh boy, I wish I had a quick and easy answer to that, because as part of my work is to try to get people to pay attention. I can say that one of the biggest risk factors for developing cognitive decline, dementia or of any kind, including Alzheimer's, is a lack of social contact.
Oh boy.
We had 2.5 years of lack of social contact. That's a big contributor to mental health issues, but it can also be a big contributor to eventual cognitive decline. I would love to think that if people realize that this isolation from human contact, this focus on electronic devices, can have such a huge long-term effect. I wish I could get that out to everybody, to understand that this isn't just that you're ignoring your pets and your kids. It's not that you're just destroying your posture because you're like this, and which can also affect your brain. Then this would be such an important point for people, because this, you and I are talking, we're communicating, even though we're not in person, we're having a good conversation, you and I. A lot of young people now don't know how to have conversations. Try to strike up a conversation with a teenager, because they don't know how to do it. They know how to text. They can text a mile a minute, but they cannot hold a real conversation. And this is something that can cause huge problems in time with work, with mental health, with brain health. That's the thing that scares me about this technology, because it's become so pervasive. But in Canada, you had that big thing, was it about a month ago, with Rogers, where everybody was out. You'd think that'd be a little bit of wake-up call for somebody.
You'd think. But I remember having experts on the show years ago warning about what was going to happen. Nobody listened. Nobody listened. It's ironic that Rogers went down and Cogeco was up, Bell Canada was up, and the independents were up. So why did Rogers go down? Maybe we'll find out in the future. But now, listen to this. If you go into a Rogers store in Canada, you have to show identification before you get in.
I heard that. How bizarre is that? Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, like what are they doing? And you're so right about the children of today losing their grasp on reality and not learning how to be communicative. Like, I've got a grandson who's going through medical school, and they don't write anything. They're not taught to write anymore. It's all text. Like, what's the world coming to? And I still say, what is going to happen if there's a solar flare and not only Rogers is knocked down, but every other, and not only the electrical grids, but the communication grids. What's going to happen to these people?
I've said that so many times about solar flares, because we had a pretty decent one not too long ago. I don't know if that had anything to do with any disruptions on the planet, but we get them from time to time, and there could be. But even more than that, we have disruptions from weather.
Yes.
We have disruptions from so many other things. It could cause a real problem, and it's going to cause a problem with food even, because if you can't, you don't have your debit card working, and you can't get food. And they were saying, I remember the news stories in Canada saying, yeah, people are going to keep some cash on hand. They're not.
No,
they're not.
It's a cashless society. It's cashless.
And the gosh darn governments are pushing it. They want this digital ID, basically, so they can track your every move and turn you on and off. I truly believe that that's the goal of this whole thing, with all of this tracking nonsense, to be able to turn you off if you're not doing what they want you to do. I truly believe that.
I have an issue with that. I really do. I don't believe in that so much, but because people say Big Brother's watching. Big Brother's been watching from day one. This is nothing new. They can track you through your ATM withdrawals. They can track you through your ATM purchases, your passport, your credit cards. Like, hello, this is nothing new. But I also say that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. I think that people who do nefarious things are the ones that are going to worry the most. That's just my opinion. I guess it
depends on who's defining nefarious.
Tell me about your paranormal experiences.
Oh boy, I've had a socket full of them. The one of the ones that I love to share is about why I learned to play the harp. Okay. I was having a existential crisis back when I was in my early 30s, and I was
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago. Yeah. So I had this momentary desire to end my life by driving off a bridge. And that experience kind of shook me to my core. And when I did finally get home from this crisis, for the first time in many, many, many years, I guess it was a prayer. It was a plea. It was something. If anybody's out there, help me. I said, if there's anybody out there, I really need some help. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And so that night, as I slept, I was given a dream. And in the dream, I played a harp. I'd never laid eyes on a harp before. I had no interest in a harp. I was nothing to do with it. And I woke up that morning and I said, okay, to my former husband, I said, I got to get a harp. I have to get a harp. Okay, he says, we'll get you a harp. So I got the harp, and 1 year from the day that I got my hands on that harp, as soon as I got my hands on that harp, I felt that was my destiny. I knew somehow that this was where my future lay and what my goal, the reason I was here on this planet. So 1 year later, we closed the business that was causing me such grief.
Oh, gosh.
We moved to Las Vegas on a wing and a prayer with a van, an old van, and 2 dogs and a harp and a guitar, literally. Drove to Las Vegas. And there, the magic started to happen, which is so weird because it's like this neon craziness. But that's where, I mean, really, it's like the last place you would expect to have this whole amazing series of things happen. But right from getting a job at the Excalibur, because we talked to someone, but then when the healing part came in, this is the big part. So we eventually got this job playing harp. He played guitar, playing harp and guitar as Crosswind in Las Vegas. And then I started getting all kinds of experiences with people with the music, like really intense things where somebody would be walking down the hall and they would just stop dead and start crying. And it was like we were hitting something from their, I don't know, past lives. Stuff like that was happening all the time. And then the big thing that happened for me was after I'd been in Excalibur for a while, somebody asked me to go and play for someone.
Okay, we're going to have a cliffhanger here. I've got to take my break, so please stand by.
Sorry.
Exonation, Kate KUNKLE is our special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Kate, her website is brainhealthmatters.today. We'll be back after this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. Next on board at the top of the next hour is Bart Sibrel, and we are going to blow the socks off of the fake lunar landing going back way back when, because Bart says we never went to the moon, and he's going to talk to us about a deathbed confession that corroborates his story. We'll be back. Don't go away.
To be accosted in her bed and abducted by aliens was the last thing Michelle expected. Yet the fateful morning of her destined death changed everything. Lord Lan Ramos, Alpha King of Vidar, the monstrous befanged alien looming over her bed, was her destined mate come to save her from certain death. He is a telepathic mute shifter. Can Michelle accept him and his animal? Once on Lan's home planet, Michelle becomes increasingly psychic, revealing her as the fabled Oracle of Vidar. As factions conspire to destroy them, will they overcome mounting threats? Will Michelle's growing gifts save them, or ultimately destroy her? Don't miss this sci-fi shifter romance with charismatic and engaging characters. Get your copy today, The Oracle of Vidar, available on Amazon or CahiraO'Donnell.com. That's CahiraO'Donnell.com.
Welcome back. This is the X Zone. Kate KUNKLE is my special guest. And Kate, I'm sorry I had to pull a little bit of a cliffhanger there, but please continue.
That's okay. Anyway, I ended up going to play for this gentleman who had cancer.
Oh.
I thought I was just, his wife had asked because he only they couldn't do anything for him. He wanted that little girl with the harp that he'd seen play. That was me. So I go to play for him. Rob, I didn't know that he was dying. I didn't know that he was on his deathbed, but I went there and I started to play for him. And I just touched his hand briefly and said, Steve, it's Kate. I'm here. I'm going to play for you. And I started to play things that I knew he liked. And then all of a sudden, Kate wasn't involved anymore. Kate wasn't playing that harp. There was something else that had taken over my fingers. And I guess you would call it channeled. Mm-hmm. It was coming between me and Steve. And I played just really beautiful music that didn't come from me for about 15 minutes. And then it was gone, just gone. And I looked up from the harp and he had just passed.
Oh my goodness.
That was it. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. My whole life started. That's where my life started. It's from that experience, really.
So where did you and your husband go from Las Vegas?
We went on tour. We started playing healing music. We went on tour, and then we ended up back in LA because we had started there when we first got married. Right. And then we went back there, and we were still doing the show. We did outdoor TV for many years. So that's what we did in LA.
What or who do you think took over you when you were playing the harp for Steve as he was getting ready to pass over?
I wish I knew. I don't even know. The only thing I kind of think maybe if you believe in the idea that we have an oversoul or something that is our super consciousness or something like that, I kind of feel like maybe it was his superconscious and my superconscious coming together, because when he was gone, it was gone. It wasn't like there was another entity involved. I think it had something to do with him and me, the combination. That's the only thing I can think of.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
So what are you going to be doing next? You've done so much. You've done your TV show. You're doing your podcast. You're writing another book. You're helping people to basically survive in a very, very poor country. What's next?
Right now, I'm really focusing on helping people that are my clients near and far to improve their brain health. That's really what it is. And that includes music. I use vibroacoustic therapy, which is a kind of sound therapy. I do that here in Ecuador. I work with Parkinson's patients, Alzheimer's. So I'm focusing on helping people turn this around, or hopefully, prevent it.
Sure.
That would be my goal, is to have nobody deal with this.
That would be wonderful. What are some of the signs and symptoms of people who have Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so before even Alzheimer's, then I'd like to say like cognitive decline, because people don't even understand what that means, because not all people who get cognitive decline will go down dementia, but many people do. So a big thing is losing sense of smell, having trouble with balance. A kind of dementia that is frontotemporal dementia is when people start like stealing things that they never did anything like that before, or saying really inappropriate things, or not being able to budget anymore, not being able to find direction, losing time and space is a big thing. And then memory issues, like just forgetting. And it progressively gets worse. So at early cognitive decline, it's like, where did I put my glasses?
Right.
I can't find my keys. And there are exercises you can do to help make that better and make your brain better. But then if that continues, and then you start forgetting appointments, then you start forgetting names of people you know well, those sorts of things. And they're very cumulative. And so many people are afraid to even admit that they might be having a problem, because if they do, they might lose their job. They might not be able to drive anymore. All of those things, it's a stigma, right? So a lot of people put it off and don't get diagnosed, and they could get help, but they don't. Well, of course, getting the diagnosis and cannot forget it. Mostly it's just like, get ready, put your affairs in order and wait to be in diapers,
What are your final thoughts? What would you like to share tonight with the X-Zone Nation?
I would like to share hope. Hope for not just the way the world is, because we do have a degree of control, right? Our attitude.
Yeah.
But also hope for your own health. Hope for taking control. Just because you have cognitive decline or you have a health issue, we have so much control. So that means we have hope. You can go from the sad diet to a healthy whole foods diet. You can go from sitting on the couch for 3 hours a night watching TV to walking, even if it's only 5 minutes at a time. You can go from getting angry all the time to starting to notice things for which you can be grateful. Gratitude is huge. We have hope that we can make things better.
We need to get rid of stress as well.
Yes.
Stress is a major killer.
It sure is.
Kate, let our listeners know where they can find out more about you, where they can buy your book, and are you still selling your music?
Well, the only music that I sell is personal recordings. So when people approach me, they can get that at KUNKLE.com. I have all of my music stuff is at KUNKLE.com. But if you want to learn about looking after your brain and you'd like to join me on the podcast, it's on video and on podcast. It's brainhealthmatters.today. Everything's there. The books are there. I've got The Vegan Brain. I've got Don't Let the Memories Fade, which came out 2 years ago now on my mom's birthday tonight. Well, the 12th was my mom's birthday. So the book came out, Don't Let the Memories Fade. And everything's there at brainhealthmatters.today.
Kate, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Continued success, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for keeping up the good word all these years.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and blessings to you, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Exonation, my guest this hour has been Kate KUNKLE. And once again, if you'd like to visit Kate's website, brainhealthmatters.today. When I come back at the top of the hour, I'll be joined by Bart Sibrel. We're going to be talking about, you know what Bart talks about? The moon landing never happened. And we're going to be talking to Bart about a deathbed confession that he recorded and its significance into proving that America never went to the moon. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. Don't go away.